Welcome to MLA Format for Essay 1, a gripping video that I'm producing for you so that you know what to do for Essay 1. The reason that it's specifically titled for Essay 1 is because Essay 1 is a personal narrative. So you're not going to have a works cited page. You're not doing research. You're talking about something from your own personal perspective. So using MLA Format is a lot easier in this situation. So we're going to talk about specifically what that means. So when we talk about MLA Style, MLA stands for Modern Language Association. They're kind of the governing body of English studies, which is why we're using it in this class. It gets used in a few disciplines, sort of social science-y things. It'll get used in history sometimes. You may also see Chicago Style or APA Style. Those are the other two popular ones, but in this class, everything will be in MLA. And what MLA Style refers to are three main features. It tells you and dictates what the page layout looks like. It dictates the citation style that you're using, and that means the parenthetical citations within the body of the paper. And then it also dictates what your works cited page looks like and how those are cited and arranged. Like I said, for this essay, it is a personal narrative, so you're not going to have any citations. If you do not have citations, then you do not need a works cited page. The two go together. So for Essay 1, we're just focusing on the page layout. And later in the semester, before you do a research paper, we will talk about the other two aspects of MLA Style. But for this one, we're just looking at page layout. And also, the rest of your assignments for this semester should also be in MLA Style, because it's good to practice and get really natural at it. So practice makes perfect. So MLA 8th edition is the current edition that we are laboring under. It came out in April 2016. You may run across citations that don't look right, and that might be because it was written before 2016, before they changed the way that things are formatted. The page layout is mainly the same as it used to be, but I just wanted to let you know that this is 8th edition. So if you look at an MLA manual, make sure it's the 8th edition if you're going to reference that. Also, what's in your textbook for this semester is obviously up to date. So here are the rules. All of your margins, the top, the bottom, and the sides, are set to 1 inch. The header is 0.5 inches from the top of the page, and you do use the header. There's also a footer option. It can be 0.5 inches from the bottom of the page, but MLA Style does not dictate a particular footer, so the header is the one I'm worried about. Your last name and page number go in the header. We'll talk about that when I show you how to set up the document. Only on the first page, you're going to get a 4-line title block. It does not go in the header. It goes in the body of the paper, and that title block does not get repeated on subsequent pages. The title block contains your name, first and last, the name of the course or the course number. For instance, this one would be English 1101. You can put the full name if you like, first year composition. It's up to you, but indicate what course you've written it for. Put the instructor's name. In this case, it will be Professor Graves. And the due date. You don't want to put the date you're writing it. Usually you might in a drafting process, but the one that you're turning in, you want to put the due date, even if it's late. Just pick the due date. That way you don't have to worry about changing it every time you touch the document. More rules. The entire document is double spaced. Don't double space it manually. There is an option for that. It will do it for you. Oh, good grief. Do not do it manually. I have seen a couple students do that before, and I just feel horrible for them because it's a total pain in the butt to fix. So I'll show you how to double space your document. But bear in mind, there are no extra spaces after paragraphs, and that is one of the tricky default settings in Word that I will talk to you about. So the first page has a descriptive title. And when I say descriptive title, I mean not just Essay 1 or personal narrative or, something like that. You want your title to actually sort of give us an idea of what the essay is about. So if I were writing about how much I love, for instance, the TV show Hannibal for this assignment, then mine might be, the title for mine, a descriptive title might be something like Why Hannibal Moves Me, or something like that, to give the reader a sense of what they're in for. So a couple of notes there on the title. You do not skip a line between the title block and the title. There is a line skipped, but that's just from the double spacing. You also don't skip a line between the title and the first line. So you're only going to hit enter once, not twice. The title is not bold, it is not italicized, and it is not put in quotation marks. One caveat to that is if it contains a title of a book or a TV episode or a song, something that should be italicized or put in quotation marks, then only that would be put in quotation marks. In my fictional essay title of Why Hannibal Moves Me, Hannibal being a proper noun and the title of a TV show would be italicized, but the entire title is not. Make sense? I hope so, because this is a video and you can't ask me a question. So, the header has your last name and the page number, and that goes in the upper right margin. The last name and page number appear on every page. Use the page number tool. Do not manually type in the page numbers. Again, that's another thing that if you were typing it on a typewriter, you would have to, but we live in the future, and in the future, you no longer have to manually number your pages. So I'll show you how to get to that tool in Word as well. And this is a pro tip. It's one of the things, it's a small detail, but the default font in Word is usually Calibri, which is frankly aesthetically unpleasing. But you want to make sure that the font of your last name and the page number match the font of the rest of your paper. By default, they are not probably going to match. So it shows a certain attention to detail. It shows that you care when you go in and you highlight the header and you put it in the correct font to match the rest of the paper. So, pro tip. And the other rule, the last rule that I'm going through in terms of page layout is that paragraphs, which you should have paragraphs, are indented 0.5 inches. The easiest way to do that is using the ruler view. Again, when I show you how to set stuff up, we will go through that. All right, so let me show you an example of how this looks on a page. This is an essay that I wrote over the summer. So this is in MLA format, and we'll go through and look at the different parts. First, you have the 1-inch margins. You have the top, left, and the side are all 1 inches from the edge of the page. I'll show you where to set that up. The header, however, is different. It is 0.5 inches from the top of the page, right? So you can see how this is a higher line than this. This is where your last name and page number come in. And if you'll notice, I did take the time to make it match the body font. In this case, it's Garamond, which is the correct font. It's not the correct font, but it's a font that I quite like and find attractive. So, your title block, the 4-item title block, it's on the first page. Again, only on the first page. It is in the body, it is not in the header. This is grayed out because I took a screenshot out of Word, and the header is grayed out when you're not editing it. So that's why it looks kind of funky. It should be the same color as the rest of the document. But the body contains the title block. So here's the date that it was due. Here's the title, a descriptive title, right? This is, and you can see where my cursor is at the beginning of the there. But there's not an extra line skipped between the title block and the title. There's not an extra line skipped between the title and the beginning of the paper, right? So no extra line before or after the title. And the title is descriptive, and it's not in bold, and it's not in quotation marks. And I did italicize sharp objects because that is the title of a television show. Gotcha? So, paragraph here is indented 0.5 inches. Again, I'll show you how to make sure that that is the case, but often the default setting in Word is a 0.5 inch tab. So that's when you hit the tab button. Do not start like spacing over until you think you've hit 0.5 inches. Use the tab button. It'll do it automatically, and then everything's aligned. And if you change anything, it changes it for you. You're not like having to go back in and, re-fiddle with things because you used the space bar. All right. So, and also the other thing there's not a label, but you can see this is in double spaced, right? And there's a paragraph break here. This is what's called the section that's indented at the bottom is what's called a block quote. We'll talk about that later in the semester. But you'll see here that in the paragraph break, there's not an extra space between the paragraph, the first paragraph and the second paragraph. So now I want to look at how to set this up using Word. And again, it's similar in other programs, but if you can't figure out how to do it in another program, you can ask me. You could also Google it. If it's Pages, I know Pages pretty well. I don't use Google Docs a lot, but I'm familiar with it. I will tell you one thing about Google Docs is that it will not let you put custom spacing in for the header, which means you can't make sure that it's 0.5 inches from the top of the page. So if you turn something in from Google Docs and you've exported it into a Word format, you might put that in the notes of the assignment, because otherwise I might be like, why is your page number not 0.5 inches from the top of the page? That is a peccadillo of Google Docs. I don't mind if you're using it, it's free, but do note that that is one of the weirdnesses. So now let's transition to a screen video of me showing you how to set this up. I apologize for the fact that I begin almost every sentence with "so" when I'm showing you something. This is the essay that I had showed you a piece of, right? So you'll see that on the first page we have Graves 1, that's my last name and a page number, and here we have Graves 2, right? That exists in the header, and if you double click up here, you get the header and footer toolbar, and that's where you can set everything up, right? That's why it looks grayed out. The body now is grayed out down here because you're editing this. So if you go back to click on the body, then that gets grayed out because you're now editing the body. So you can't edit both at the same time. And if you select all in the body, it doesn't change the header. The header is separate. Pro tip. So you'll see if I go here to layout, you can look at my margins. They're 1 inch all around. You can also get to that by format, document, and a window should pop up, and that's where you can format where everything lives. You can also decide if you want a different odd and even header. You don't, for this class at least, and you can tell it how far from the top of the page you want the header and how far from the bottom you want the footer to be. So that should be 0.5 inches. Cool? All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you how to build a document from nothing. So if you open a blank template, but I just wanted to show you, and I'll probably post this as an example of an MLA style essay. But for now, let's make that go away and start a new document. Document 2. So we want to check the layout, check the margins. They're at 1 inch. And if I want to make it doubly sure, again, I can go to format document. My header is 0.5 inches from the top of the page. My other margins are all 1 inch, which is how it should be. All right. I'm going to go back here. This in the toolbar is the line and paragraph spacing tool. So like I said, you want this to be a double spaced document, so you're going to choose 2.0. There's a weirdness about that we will go back and look at. So first what we want is a name. It's a very intriguing name, yes. So unique, no one would ever think to be Jane Smith. So let's say the class that you're doing this for is English 1101, and you're extra like me. So you do that, type it all out. Then the instructor is Professor Plum, right, who murdered somebody with a candlestick in the library. And then the date this is due, let's pretend it's due on 1 October 2020. You could also type it out as 10/01/20 if you wanted to. I think the other way is more elegant, but it does not matter. It is a date. If you're British, you have an entirely different way of doing dates. So, and then we need a descriptive title, right? Descriptive title. But we want that to be centered. So I'm going to highlight it and I'm going to center it. And then I'm going to hit enter just once. I'm not hitting enter twice because we already chose double spacing. Yes. So, but I do need this to be back on this side. So go up here in the toolbar and you click on left justified. Now remember what I told you about setting up your tabs and the being able to see the ruler. If you go to view, you can do it from here. You can also do it from this view, the sort of like main, and if you're on a PC, that would make more sense. You can click the ruler on and off there in the view tab. And what this does is it shows you basically like, you know, this is an inch that this margin is set to. There's also a vertical ruler, so again, it's showing you that this is an inch from the top of the page. You can, so like I said, the default tab is usually already set to 0.5 inches. If I scroll up where you can see, sure enough, that lines up with the 0.5 inch marker here. You can change the default tab. Again, it's under format, paragraph, spacing. You can get deep into it, but typically it's already a 1/2 inch. Another way to change where your tab goes, so you have these little doohickeys here, a rectangle and 2 triangles. If you pull this over, wherever your cursor is and everything after it becomes where your margin is. Now my cursor's moving 0.5 inches ahead because I had already indented, right? So you can use this if you want. This is much more useful when you get into doing formatting your works cited page, which again, we're not there yet. So anyway, here is my first paragraph. Blah, blah, blah. Right? So, that's how we set it up. Now I'm just gonna go back to the other document that I was in and copy some text so that I can show you something. I'm just gonna grab this text, go back to the other document. I'm going to paste and match style. That's also a pro tip. So say I want this is actually should be a new paragraph. So I hit enter and I hit tab. Now, because I had already formatted text, there's not an extra space here. But what you want to check, if you go to line spacing options, sometimes this will be set to auto and it'll give you like a little bit of, you can see there that there's like a little bit of extra space. You don't want that. You want that to be budged right up together. So you can just highlight the gap between them, go to line spacing options and choose 0. And you can do it'll maybe before, it may be after, but that's where you might get a little extra space between your two paragraphs. Okay, so again, this is pretty simple, right? No big deal. You've got your, this is already 0.5 inch indentation for the new paragraph. Now what we are missing here is the page number and last name. And again, like I said, that goes in the header. So to edit the header, you can do it one of two ways. You can go to layout, you can go to insert and then header, and you can choose from sort of these like built-in options, right? Or the other way you can get to it that I usually just get to because it's a double click is double click at the top of the page. So double click to get out of it, double click to get into it. So I want this. Now let's say that I'm writing my paper in the ever popular Times New Roman form. Or actually, I'm going to do it in Garamond. It's the font I prefer. So this is what I've typed my paper in. I go into my header. I need to write my name, my last name only. Yes. Wait, no. Jane Smith is writing this paper. My apologies. So now, obviously, this is supposed to be on the right hand of the page. So since I haven't hit enter or anything, I can just click that. You could also highlight it and click Write Justify. Now what I need here is the page number. But again, I don't want to type 1 because then you have to type it on every page. And what's in the header actually appears on every page. So if you type it manually, then when you get to a second page, again, that same number appears, right? So what you do instead, I'm going to delete that, Smith, and then you want to go to insert, and it's also in the header and footer tab because it knows that a page number is a thing that you probably are going to want. You can also go up here, many roads lead to Rome. So here I want to insert page numbers. It's going to ask me, where do I want it? And I want it on the right. I do want to see it on the first page. It's default in the header because that's what we're editing. And I'm going to click OK. Voila! Now what I mentioned earlier, and you may, for those of you who are eagle-eyed, be like, well, that font doesn't match. And that is true. The header doesn't default to matching the body. So you have to change it. But you'll see I just changed the name, but the number is still in Calibri, which is the ugliest font. So you can highlight the number, change that to Garamond as well, and voila, you have a header. Yeah, there's a little bit of an extra space here. You can drag it around, but if you get into double digits of space so you can drag it from here if you want, but if you get into double digits on the number, it can get a little stuffy, so an extra space here is not a problem. But what that means, when you use the page number insert tool, then on page 2, it's automatically numbered at 2, and it will do that throughout the rest of the document. So that's it for how to set up the page layout in a Word document. Again, your mileage may vary in a Pages or a Google Docs. Like I said, in Google Docs, the header spacing is always bizarre. But there you go. That's it. It's not rocket surgery, so I hope that you don't have too much trouble with it. And again, you want to putting this in this format, using MLA format, and you using this style for all of the papers you turn in. What that means is that I don't have to look at or judge how you've laid it out because it just conforms to a style. So that way your audience can really focus on the content. That is largely what style is meant to do, is to foreground content and standardize format. So, I'm not going to tell you what font to use, but if any of you turn in a Comic Sans font or Papyrus, we're going to have words Use something professional, Times, Garamond, Arial is fine, Helvetica, if you're a sans serif kind of person. No shade. So this is how essay 1 should be formatted. This is how the rest of your essays should be formatted. And once we add references, once you're doing research and citing things, we'll add another component. But for the most part, this is where you should be for essay 1. Hit me up if you have questions. Thanks so much.